Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. What's up, everybody? I hope that you all are doing well. Congratulations to the 2022 graduates, whether it's from elementary school, middle school, high school, or college. It's such a great accomplishment. It's something to be proud of. And it's June, Black Music Month, my birthday month. The end of June is the halfway mark of the year. So if you made it this far, congratulations. Regardless if you're where you planned on being or seeing yourself at this time of the year, you still made it this far. Go back to those goals, those dreams, those aspirations, and take a look at them. If you fell off track, fine, you can get back on track, but you may need to do some restructuring, some shifting, some rearranging some things so you can complete your goals for this year, but you still have time. You got what 6 months, 7 months left, pretty much a little shy of 7 months left. So let's get to it. And I cannot stress this enough. No matter how much you've accomplished so far this year, you still have something to be proud of because you made it this far. No matter how many mistakes you made, what's happened up until this point, that doesn't matter. If you're listening to this, hey, if you fell off, you had something you started at the beginning of the year, you fell off, pick it back up. If you started reaching out to people, calling people, and you kind of fell off, pick it back up. Put it down, pick it back up. See what you need to do, what you need to add, what you need to subtract, what bad habits you might have picked up during this time, but now's the time to readjust, restructure, and get back on task with those goals. Find yourself an accountability partner. Find someone who can hold you accountable, tell them what things you need to hear from them or what type of support you need, and also be receptive to it. Don't tell somebody you need their help and when they're coming in there doing what they're supposed to do, you get upset and all in your feelings because you realize they're right. Remember, you gave them permission to encourage you and help you. So let them help you. Do what you need to do to get back on track. Yeah, just keep pushing forward. Pause when you need to, but always restart. Readjust when you need to, but keep going. Don't put your dreams down. Don't walk away from them. Do what you need to do to make them become a reality. Do what you need to do to make those things happen. And so let's get into today's topic. So, episode 13, I talked about non-negotiables. If you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen to it. Kind of dove into how those how some of our non-negotiables could be the things that are holding us back because they were set at a place in our life that we aren't in now. And I didn't talk about this, but if your non-negotiables were made from a hurt place and you know if they were or not, those really need to be renegotiated, especially if you're going through the healing process or if you've already healed from certain hurts, pains, traumas, or whatever. You need to relook at those non negotiables because they were serving a different version of yourself than you are now. And that's also what I want to talk about today. How there are some people holding you hostage to past versions of yourself. There are people who can't see how you've grown, and it's not always intentional, but we don't interact with people how we used to. I always say this, with social media and stuff, things that were supposed to bring us closer together seems like it drives us further apart. So we really don't know people how we used to know them before there was social media and all these different ways to connect with people. We had to actually be intentional about linking up with people, making plans, and really sitting with them and talking to them. Before text messaging, we used to call people. We used to have real conversations with them to find out what's going on with them, what's going on in their life. Technology has made us lazy. Part of that laziness is that we see people as our last experiences with them, our last encounters with them. You have some people that you haven't seen since you were a child. And then when you finally get a chance to link up with them and have a conversation with them, they're still handling you like you're that child, but you've matured and you've grown and you've become a different person. It's so interesting to me how sometimes you talk to somebody and and you're having a conversation, and then they're telling you all this stuff that you do, and you're listening and you're like, yeah, those things I did and the way I acted in those situations, I was 10 years old. So you're basing, your knowledge of me, your understanding of me off of things I did at 10 years old, when I didn't have the level of maturity or the level of understanding to handle situations in a different way. I mean, it's so funny how people do that. They can even, I could say, high school or college. People look at their experiences with you and they take it and they make it the version who you are now without even giving themselves the chance to be reintroduced to who you are, who you've become. Hopefully none of us hopefully are the same way we were when we were in elementary school, middle school, and high school, and even college. Hopefully we've all grown and we've all progressed to become better versions of ourselves. Or maybe even at that time, not even maybe, during those times and at those younger ages, we were just trying to figure stuff out. We really didn't know who we were. We really didn't know what, to expect out of life. We had our ideas. We always thought we knew so much, but as we got older and we look back, it's so many different things that we had no understanding about. Like, for instance, my favorite one of my two favorite movies are Coming to America and Boomerang. Watching those movies at a very young age, it was a lot of stuff in there, that I thought was funny, but it wasn't until I actually became an adult that I understood the actual jokes, why those things were funny. When you're a certain age, you have an idea about how things are, and at a younger age, you may understand the idea of why things work, but you don't have the context. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily have the context. You don't necessarily have a grasp of why these things actually happen until you get older. So you handle things with all the information that you have. You have ideas and thoughts with all the information that you have, but it's not until you actually, get older and or have more experiences that you actually realize why these things happen. I mean, it's so many jokes in those two movies that, I thought were funny. Didn't know why, but it just, I laughed and became older and I was like, so this is why this is funny. This is why this joke. Okay, I get it now. And I'm sure that you've had that same experience watching movies at an older age, realizing, or a TV show, certain episodes of a TV show, realizing what the jokes were about, what the conversation was about, what the context was about, because you have more knowledge, because you're older, you've had more experiences, you're more mature. So with that, why is it that people hold so dearly and tight to older versions of other people? If you really hadn't seen or hung around somebody in about 10, 20, 15 years or longer, you don't know who that person is now. Hopefully they've grown and changed and become different people. Sometimes they might actually be the same type of person, but are you allowing yourself to be receptive to who they've become? And not only do we do that with other people, sometimes we do it with ourselves. It's a lot of things we haven't forgiven ourselves for that we should forgive ourselves for. It's a lot of things that we're beating ourselves up about over and over again that we shouldn't. And even if it's a situation where you've wronged somebody and you've talked to them and you've asked them for forgiveness and they've forgiven you, you have to let that go. And same thing goes for the person on the receiving end. If you tell somebody that you forgive them, let it go. When you hold on to stuff that other people have done, you imprison your thoughts, your emotions, and those things shape your life whether you know it or not. They could have a huge impact on how you interact with other people. And while you holding animosity and unforgiveness towards this person who's 9 times out of 10 moved on with their life and don't even know that you're still upset, you're missing out. You're the person that's hurting. You're the person that's not able to function with others, not able to trust other people because of something that somebody else did. And that's a part of non-negotiables that I think needs to be readdressed as well when it comes to trust. You have a checklist of things that you trust and don't trust with people, but where did that list come from? Did that list come from a specific person who's not even in your life anymore? And yeah, there are red flags, and yeah, there's certain things you can look for and see, but are you really seeing the red flags when they come in? Or is your mind so pre-programmed to look for these things that that's what you're actually seeing? You got to think about these things and look at the situations for what they are. We don't do enough communicating. We don't talk to each other enough. We'll have misunderstandings and let them go. We'll take our version of whatever we think happened and let it ride. We won't even talk to people. I always make sure that if I feel like something has happened or there's some sort of friction or situation between somebody that and I and myself, I always try to reach out and figure out what the problem is. I always try to be like, okay, so what happened here? And I've been in these situations a couple of times, been on both sides where, you know, taking something out of context and thought it was one way when it actually was a completely different thing. I've done that. I've taken a situation where I thought it was one way and it actually was another. Wasn't until the conversation was had that I realized I was wrong and I apologized. Been on the other end, of course. People took out of context something I said. We had a conversation and it was squashed. It was a misunderstanding. There were no hard feelings afterwards because we were having two different conversations because we didn't have a general understanding of what we were talking about. That's a huge part of communication. We sit and think that communication is just having a conversation. That's just talking. When you communicate, both or all parties understands everybody's views in that situation. Doesn't mean they have to agree, but they do understand. It's a lot of people with severed relationships and even family who aren't talking to each other, who haven't talked to each other because they're still holding in that mind that old version of that person. And they haven't talked to this person in so long that they don't even know that that person has changed. They don't even know that that person who might have given them so much opposition could be the very person that helps them and the person that they need because they're holding on to old versions of people because of past hurts, past disappointments, past letdowns, or even a misunderstanding because conversations weren't had. That past version that you're holding, that past version that you have of that person might have even been the wrong version. Could have been some things that you took out of context, and then instead of addressing them, you let them build up until you convince yourself that this person is somebody that they're totally not. So you have to have conversations and get an understanding. You have to communicate. You have to stop holding on to that old version of yourself, that old version of somebody else. Sometimes we have to reintroduce ourselves to us. We're not the same people we were 10 years ago. Hopefully, we're not the same people we were 10 years ago. Hopefully, we've grown. Hopefully, we've learned more things and we're more understanding. And then I hate seeing this post that always goes around where you don't owe anybody anything and you don't have to reach out to people. And okay, that stuff applies for some people, right? Because some people, you've been really hurt by somebody and they really, completely disrespected you. Understandable. But some of y'all, and you got to be honest with yourself, take those things and run with it when you knew you were the person who was at fault to begin with. You were the person who did all the stuff. And now you're using this to justify why you don't talk to the people. You got to be real, man. You got to just we all have to be real with ourselves. When it comes to situations where we hadn't talked to people in a while and we have all these different, rifts in our relationship stuff, what was your role in that? What did you do? What could you have done differently? Look at yourself first before you just jump and look at other people. And yeah, I understand sometimes it gets tiring when you always have to be the person to come in and intervene, always have to be the person to make things right. But sometimes that's needed for certain people. They don't know how to reach out and talk to people. They don't know how to make things right. So it may take us to be the person to reach out. But don't take these old versions of these people and these old versions of them of yourself and try to move forward like nothing's happened. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.